Hi everyone, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums. This is the part 1 of the tutorial on how I made the Happy Camper Camping Logbook. There is a walkthrough recorded already, so that's linked in the description box if you want to see that. But this is where I'm going to show you how I made this. Of course, I used Outdoor Adventures by Stephen Duncan, a Carta Bella paper line, and the Coordinating Solids paper pack. I used almost all of the papers here, hardly had any scraps left, and I actually supplemented with 2 extra coordinating solids. If you don't want to do that, then I would reduce the pages. Instead of having 5 signatures, do 4, and just reduce the spine by 1/2 inch. So let me just show you the page that you're going to make, and they're all the same. This is the page that you'll make. So there is a front flap with a flap on the flap, pocket here, and a back flap with a flap there. So that's what we're going to teach you how to do, and also I'll show you how to do the expanding pocket in the back with the flap and the library style closure. So stay tuned and let's get crafting. Okay, so we're going to make the base page. The base page consists of a flap, a page with a pocket, and the pocket will be on both sides. I don't have one on here yet, and then a back flap. So actually there's room on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides to decorate and add photos. So let's get started. Alright, to make the base page you'll need 4 different sheets of paper. You will need one piece that's 10 by 12, so obviously you'll need a 12 by 12 piece for that. Then you'll need 2 pieces that are 8.5 by 5 1/4. You could actually get that out of an 8.5 by 11 sheet. You'll have a little sliver left over. But if you did it out of a 12 by 12, you would have a strip 3.5 inch long, and with that you can cut the pocket, which is 5 3/4 by 3.5. Save the other piece for journaling cards or flaps that are for a landscape piece. All right, so those are the 4 pieces. Let's score them. Let's start with the easiest first. Let's do the flaps. So they're 8.5 by 4, 5 1/4. Take the 8.5 inch side, put next to the scoreboard with the 5 1/4 inch side at the top, and simply score at 1/2 inch. And do that for both of those. 1/2 inch on one side. The pocket, the 5 3/4 by 3 1/4, we're going to score at 1/2 and 5 1/4. And rotate this way and score at 1/2 inch. So you're going to score on the 2 short sides and the 1 long side. Okay. Base page is going to be fun. Actually, it's not difficult. We're going to score this 1/2 inch on the 12 inch side with the 10 inch side at the top, and then score again at 5 1/4. So at 1/2 and 5 1/4. Now let's rotate so the 12 inch side is at the top, and score at 1/2 and at 9. All right, and that's all we need to use the scoreboard for. Now we're going to trim these down. So I'm going to put this base page with the 1/2 inch score line at the top and at the right side. And I'm going to draw with a pencil what we're going to trim. We're going to miter this. So right at that score line, we're going to actually trim it at an angle. And we're going to cut off this whole 1/2 inch. And we're going to go down to the bottom. So you see the score line. At the score line, we're going to miter that. And we're going to trim this whole piece down to the miter. So I'm going to grab a scissors, miter that and miter that. Now I'm going to grab my long blade scissors. These are fabulous for cutting. Now you could use an X-Acto. You could put it back in your trimmer. But with this I can cut a straight line. So we've taken off that piece. And now we'll take off this long piece down to the miter. This one I did not cut straight after I was saying I can cut straight, and I didn't, but that's okay. So we've got those two pieces taken out of the base page. Now we're also going to trim the right-hand side we're leaving alone. The left-hand side we're going to trim. So see how there's a flap on the right-hand side? I want a corresponding one on the left. So we're going to trim this. We're going to miter it. And there's a flap here at the top. Oh, the sun's peeking through. We need a corresponding flap at the bottom. So we're going to trim here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with my long blade scissors. Just go there and go like that, and then cut diagonal right to the score line, the intersection of the 4 scores. So there we've got, let me see if I can go out. There. So now you can see what we have. Now I'm going to add score tape. Well, let me trim the rest of these miters. So I'm going to miter this and this and here and here. Okay. That's an interesting shape piece, huh? All right, so let's add our tape. We're going to put it on all of these 1/2-inch flaps that we've made for this piece, but don't attach anything yet. All right, and let's put it on our pocket, which we have to trim that too. And our 2 flaps. All right, I'm going to just lightly burnish. We'll burnish again once we fold it. All right, let me grab my scissors and we're going to miter the flaps. And the pocket. We'll do the top, just slightly angle it, and then the bottom. So I don't want to go straight through. I'm going to go sort of at an angle to where the X is, and then a little more drastic. Okay, let's go ahead and fold and burnish these. I'm going to turn this upside down and we'll fold that bottom flap towards us and burnish, and same with that. Put that aside, fold and burnish the flaps, and fold and burnish this one too. All right, now we're going to take the base page and I'm going to turn this upside down and fold and burnish towards me. That one. Fold and burnish so the score tape is facing up and the fold is facing up. Okay, don't touch this little pocket first. Let us, oops, let us add some glue. So I like glue and, come on, I didn't have the little pin in. I like using glue and score tape, although I think one would work. I know I'm crazy that way. All right, we're going to fold that in. I guess I should have burnished that first. Okay, that is beautiful. Here's the pocket. This is going to go on the outside. So the closed part is on the right side. The open part is on the left. Let us go ahead and add flaps to it first. We're going to add the flaps to the open part. Don't touch this pocket. So I'm putting the glue on both sides of that 1/4-inch score tape. I'm not putting it, trying not to put it on top of it. All right, I'm going to line this up carefully and fold. Now I'll turn this over. And again, this is the open part. Adding just a bead of glitter glue. I don't need very much. It adheres real well. Going down to, whoops, I need to go down further. Down to that score line, just almost to it. And then go straight to the top, and there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over again, open this up. So now if I fold in the flaps where the tape is, add a dab of glue. And then I'm going to fold that in. And then I'm going to take the other pocket, so there's a pocket there, fold it this way, and put the other pocket on this side. Don't go too close to the fold because you don't want to impinge on that fold. You want to make sure there's some extra room. Oh, geez. And there we go. So there is your base page. You've got the flap, so that's 2 pages to decorate and add photos to. A pocket, and then another one. And then the opening is going to be here on the right side. And then as you're decorating, you can add flaps to these pages. You'll add something in the pocket. I mean, it gives you a lot of room. So go ahead and make 4 more of these, and then let's meet up again and put the cover together. All right, let's put the cover of the book together. You'll need 2 pieces of medium weight chipboard, 9 by 5, and 1 piece 9 by 2.5. You'll need 2 sheets of 8.5 by 11. Now, if you're using 12 by 12 paper, what you want to do is make sure you've got 2 inches longer and 2 inches wider, plus the width of the chipboard, the spine of the chipboard, plus an extra 1/2 inch. So you would want it 11, but you could use 12 by 7. So you're going to have 2 together, so that would be 14 plus 2.5, those 16.5, plus an extra 1/2 inch, so 17. So you'd want to start out 17.5 because you're going to put them together. So that would be if you did 8, 8 1/4, that would work, but I'm leaving it at 8 1/2, just because having a little extra is not going to be a big deal. So I'm going to join these by putting score tape along one of the long edges. And as straight as you possibly can, add those together. Okay, now I've already adhered some score tape to the back of the pieces. I'm going to use a combination of score tape and art glitter glue. And just a word about that art glitter glue. It actually isn't glitter. It just is the glue they made for glitter, and it turns out to be a good strong glue all by itself. So I'm going to put this in the channels in between the score tape. And I'm going to try to center this. So then on the back of the sheet, 1/2 inch away from here is the other piece. I'm actually going to center it more towards where the more left justified. There we go. If you want to make sure you get a straight line, you could score the paper 1 inch from the edge. It doesn't matter because you're going to cover it all, but if you want to make sure you do that. All right, now I'm going to take my 1/4 inch score tape and put it next to that one piece, go from top of the page to bottom of the page. This allows me to space and also add some extra adhesion when I'm putting the cover together. Do a good job burnishing now because you really won't get to do it again later. Okay. Now I'm going to take my 9 by 5 pieces, and as I said, I put the score tape on. You could just use the glitter glue. You could just use score tape if you have score tape sheets. I don't, so I'm using a combination of score tape and glitter glue. It's not going to go anywhere because it's going to be encapsulated by the paper, but you don't want any air pockets in there. So now I see I've gotten it a little wonky. It's not straight, but that's okay. It's not going to bother me. Like I said, if it bothers you, then go ahead and put a score line on there and try to stick to the score line. Okay, I'm going to go on the other side of that 1/4 inch score tape, lining it up at the top and the bottom, and we're good. Turn it over and burnish. And then while it's turned over, I'm going to go ahead and find where the edge is. And just press my bone folder along the edge. Just to help in folding it. All right. Now what you want to do is trim off the corners. I'm going to trim them and stay about 1/8 of an inch away from the corner of the chipboard. Go like this. If for some reason you find you've come too close, you can just take this and just glue it right there on the chipboard, and it'll cover it. It'll hide all sins. All right, now I'm going to take off the score tape. And run another bead of score tape. I'm going to put it on the outside of the paper. You could do the outside and you could put it on the chipboard, or you could do one or the other. I'm going to put it on the outside of the paper. And this is another case where the score tape will hold while the liquid glue is drying. All right, I'm going to turn this on its end and fold the long edges down. Now I'll pull off the backing. Add some our glitter glue to the diagonal and then inside. And if you want, you can go right up against the edge of the chipboard. And then this, I'm going to work it. And then starting at the center, push it in. And burnish. So same thing, I'm going to take this, run the bone folder close to the edge. That glue helps loosen up the fibers and helps it fold. Then I'm going to start in the center and push this down. And there, and burnish it. It's okay if the glue seeps out. All right, now there is this little sliver of a triangle. I'm going to show you here because it's a little bigger. So see how there's this triangle? I'm going to take my bone folder and push it down. Take my bone folder and push it down. I'll take off my backing. Add some glue and fold that up. And there we go. I'm going to push that down with my bone folder just to make sure those corners are nice and flat. Okay. So I'm going to back out again. Push this down. Grab my glue. And there we go. got a bone folder that's 1/4 inch wide maybe. It's thicker and it doesn't have a point like these do. So I'm going to take that one, and a lot of times those blue-green ones that come with Wear Memory Keepers things, those will work. I just like one that's got, you know, not a point. And I'm going to work this paper in the channel. Now don't forget there's glue, or not glue, score tape. So if you push it enough, but you don't want to tear it, and I'm going to fold this as I go, eventually it's going to meet. Those two pieces of score tape are going to meet. So I'll do that, folding it and working it gently. Go. And that way there's enough of a gap that you don't get any cracking. Alright, so we're done with this. I am going to keep it in this position. I'll take my bone folder and go along all the edges and make it nice and crisp. Just because I like to do that. Keep it in this position and let it rest for a little bit. And then we'll work on the hinge. Alright, now we're going to do the hinge system. I'm using this black because I think there's enough of a shine with my lights that you can see it. So there needs to be 5 hinges, and there's going to be 3/8 of an inch in between. You can use an 8.5 by 11 or a 12 by 12 piece to start, but you'll cut it down to 8 3/8 by 12 or 8 3/8 by 11. All right, let's start at 2. Yeah, you can see that pretty clearly. And then 2 1/2, 3, 3 3/8, 3 7/8, 4 3/8, 4 3/4, 5 1/4, 5 3/4, 6 1/8, 6 5/8, 7 1/8, 7 1/2, 8, 8 1/2. Well, that shows up pretty clearly. Another way to do it is wherever you start, you can count eighths. So you start at 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So you could do it that way. Another thing that you may have noticed is I've got the marks Sharpied into the indentations so I can follow that. So a couple of different ways of scoring. All right, now I'm going to put this on my work surface and grab my 1/4 inch tape. On our hinges, you've got the 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, and 3/8. So you're going to eventually fold those 1/2 inch pieces, and those are going to become mountains. We're going to add score tape to the tops of the mountains. I'll show you in a second. And that's where the hinge will sit, or the page will sit in there. So what you do is you put the 2 pieces of 1/4 inch score tape next to each other. So that's what we're going to do. So we have these 2 1/2 inch pieces. Where they meet, you'll put a piece of score tape on one side of the score line and then on the other side of the score line. So there's 5 hinges, so you'll do 5 cents. of score tape on the score line. Can you see? Is there enough of a shine to it? All right, so anyhow, all right, we'll go ahead and put it next to each other with the fold in the middle. Alrighty, and let's just grab bone folder and lightly burnish. I'll go ahead and burnish it real well in a little bit. All right, now we're going to turn this upside down. So on our prototype, and it's good, by the way, to make a couple of these out of scraps. That way, when you're trying to figure out how much of a spine, you've got a couple of these made and you can just measure it, or, you know, if you want to make a little bigger, a little smaller, you can play around with it. So I do it with a couple of different sizes, like a 1/4 inch instead of 3/8. Sometimes my hinges will be 3/4 of an inch instead of half. It just depends. So on the back side of this, where the 3/8 inch is, that's what's going to touch the paper. So we need a piece of 3/8 score tape down the channels that are the 3/8 inch wide. So there should be 4 of them between the hinges, since there's 5 hinges. Now, I also want to do 2 on the outside. If you have wider score tape, like an inch or 2, you can use that. But since I don't have that, I'm just going to put 2 together. So that's about 3/4 of an inch. Okay, now another place we need tape is when we make these mountains. We need them to adhere. So what I like to do is put a piece of tape just on one side of the mountain, close to the bottom. Because then when you match them up, they'll adhere. And there you go. That's your hinge. You don't need to put one on each side. I mean, you can, but that's almost overkill. So I will put it close to the bottom of the hinge on one side, so that'll butt up next to the 3/8 of an inch channel. When I'm done, I'll grab an X-Acto and trim off the corners. All right, so that's what it looks like. Now let's go ahead and burnish real well. Okay, now let's do some folding. So I want the mountain to be in between where those 2 1/4 inch tapes are on the top. So I'm going to take it and fold it and burnish it in between those 2 1/4 inch score tapes. Okay, so we folded it like this. Now, so that's folded up. These need to be folded the other way. But in order to do that, what I like to do is pull the paper towards me and make these meet. So I'll show you this way. Actually, all right, so I'm going to pull this. All right, so I've got this one folded. I'm going to pull it up, pull these up, and just try to bend the paper. All right, did that give you a good idea? So you've got the mountains where the score tapes are, and then you've got these 3/8 of an inch below. I'm going to turn that upside down. And all right, so here is, that's where the two half-inch pieces are going to meet. So I'm going to peel off the backing of the score tape on every one on the underside of it where the two half-inch pieces are going to meet. And then I'm going to gently turn it over. Don't want to push hard because I don't want the adhesive to stick on the surface. And I'm going to again pull these mountains and grab them so they adhere. All right, now that I've got them all, I will straighten them out with my fingers, and then I'll take my bone folder and burnish. All right, so fold them one way and then the other and burnish. Eventually they'll move pretty easily. All right, that's pretty simple. So now you've got your hinge. The bottom of it has all this score tape together, and then we'll add glue to the flaps on the sides. So I'm going to grab one to match the color of the book I'm making, and we will put it in the book. All right, we have our book cover made and we have our spine made. The hinge system. I took some scissors and cut down at an angle the hinges. And now I'm going to take off the backing tape. Well, first I'm going to figure out where it's going to go. And I'm going to have more room in the back than I am in the front, just because in the back I tend to put a large pocket, an accordion pocket. But I want to go a little, center it top to bottom, center it sort of left justified side to side. I'll peel off the backing paper. Okay, and then I will hold it with, I call these the wings. And remembering where I had it, I'll gently place it down. And I'll take my finger and, starting at the center, push that score tape down. I'll move this hinge over and do the next one. And then I'll go back to the first and do the one next to that. And then go to the back and do that one. And then push down here. Now I'll grab my bone folder. The thick one, not a pointed one, but the thick one. And gently, where the channel is, work slowly and try to get this paper to hit the adhesive in that channel. Gently. You don't want to go too hard at first because you don't want to tear the paper. If you do, it's not the end of the world though. All right, let me push this one down and then I'll work it in the channel again on this side, and it's working really nicely. Now there wasn't any score tape close to the edge, so I'm grabbing some glue, and we're going to cover this piece with whatever's on the inside cover. Bend the paper a little, make sure it's got enough room to give, and then push that down real well. And do the same here. Push this into the channel, bend the book, make sure it's adhered real well, and burnish. Now because this has glue, I want to let it dry for a little bit before I do anything else. So I'm just going to put this aside till we're ready to put the pages in the book. All right, now I'm going to put the pages in the book now. I do put them in before I decorate. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. You can decorate them and then put them in. I usually start in the back and I have my pages all piled up so I know which order they're going in, although in this case they're all the same. I have the 1/4 inch score tape, and I've taken off the backing on the first one, and I'm going to add a little bit of glue to the very top. Hard to do, that's why it just bubbles up. I'll open up my little tube, start on one end, put it down on the other. I don't go all the way down. In this case, I keep about 1/4 inch up, 1/4 inch showing. And when I feel like it's nice and even, then I push down. I'll go back and use my bone folder and really burnish it well. But for now, I'll go ahead and do the next one. So again, I start from the back and I move forward. It's just important to make sure, so I have pockets on the bottom, I make sure that they are actually on the bottom. Add my bead of glue. And the reason I do this is so when you're burnishing, you can close up the tube so nothing will stick to the tape. I pull the first page I put on up, and I just try to make sure that these pages are even, and one's not taller than the other. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, but this is your chance to get it as good as you can. So now I'll push that down and go to the next one. Come on. Make sure the bottom's on the bottom. I'm putting my fingers in the tube. And I start at one end and then go down to the other. It's nice and even. We're good to go with that one. Gosh, when I first did this, it took me forever to put these pages in. Didn't want to make a mistake. Didn't want to have them wonky. Oh, that's the wrong page. Alrighty. Make sure it's even. Perfect. Take this off. Make sure the bottom's on the bottom and push it down. And then I'll go ahead and grab my bone folder and make sure that everything is adhered real well. Make sure that glue is getting in to where I need it to. And there we go. All right, so I have my mini album with my pages. So it opens like that. There's the pocket, there's a pocket, there's another page. And actually there is a lot of real estate now in this book. By adding those flaps, it just gives you a lot more pages. And that's how I put the book together. The next part is going to be me decorating the pages, adding flaps with the cut aparts, and finishing the book. So don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you know when that video is complete. Thanks so much for watching. Have a fabulous day.